Yeah, another program that I had an opportunity to work with was a rights, and I know it was a short-lived program. It was a special initiative at the Y, and it was a rites of passage program for young people. And many of these young people are young people who were in desperate need of additional guidance and support. But it was a rites of passage program for African American young men. And I remember this group of about 20 adolescents. And I remember the very first session, we had a facilitator there, and we were going around and talking to the young people in the room, a group of 20 kids. And the first question was, stand up and tell me something positive about your father. And only 2 or 3 young people were willing or did share information. The follow-up question was, tell me something positive about your father's father. And to recognize the importance of family and identity, and to have young people who were in such desperate need of a connection really was a profound moment for me. I don't think in terms of this interview and where you're going is going to make it in, but in terms of profound moments, you have a group of 20 young people and you're having conversation that maybe they've never had an opportunity really to talk about these kind of things. It was eye-opening for me, and although it was a different story, a different kind of story, a different kind of program, that happened under the roof of the McGaw YMCA. I mean, I think the YMCA is an institution. You know, it is, for me, it's hard to talk about my childhood, to talk about Evanston, without talking about the Y. And there's a sense of connection that I think my generation had with the YMCA. And it's something that, while I don't live in Evanston any longer, I certainly have a connection to the Y and consider myself part of the YMCA family. There are so many stories that I have about the Y that are about relationships. But the Y is a tremendous facility, you know, in terms of brick and mortar and what's represented, what's housed at the Y. From a child care center to an Olympic-sized pool to a basketball court to a camp to there's so many wonderful facilities that are at the Y that it's really a treasure and a jewel for Evanston to have that kind of space, not just for young people, but for the entire community. It is very much a sense of self-respect and respecting others. It's very much a sense of community. It's a very much a sense of connectedness and belonging. It's very much represented in the people that are connected to the Y. It's very much about Christopher Hart or Tony Lee or John Maraska. These are very different people, but they all are united by the same spirit that was captured at the Y. It's a very special place, and it instills a sense of community and belonging and togetherness and self-respect that I'm glad I had an opportunity to be exposed to it, and it really was a privilege for me to try to share some of that with young people and with families through the Y. We still have a Y membership. It's cheaper where I live, but we still have a Y membership, and it's special. It's to your question about could you imagine Evanston without the Y, I can imagine it, but I wouldn't want to live there, I wish the Y continued success in the future. Evanston is such a landlocked community. It's hard to grow, and there's so much controversy about growing up, vertically. I would hope that the love affair between the McGaw YMCA and the Evanston community continues for at least another 125 years. I remember getting out of college and wanting to really and truly have the same kind of experience, to give young people the same kind of experience that Mike Duvall or YMCA gave me. And I started full-time at the Y. And I remember I had keys to the YMCA, right? I had keys to everything. Now, people at the Y probably hated that I had keys to everything. So that was so, you talk about never sleep. The fact that here's this wonderful institution, and then all of a sudden I have keys to the kingdom. And I remember one night I'd work late, and I had an apartment really close to the Y, and I went and I got my dog. His name was Apollo. This big Rottweiler. And this was, I don't know, 10 o'clock at night. While the Y wasn't sleeping, there weren't a lot of people there. And I remember I just needed to get something from my office. And I walked with my dog over to the Y. I used the keys. I went into my office. I let the dog, for a split second, Susan, it was 2 minutes. I let the dog run around the youth lobby, right? I get my pad of paper. I lock up. Me and the dog, we leave. The next day I come in. Tony Lee is there. There's a big problem. Apparently Apollo took it upon himself to relieve himself in the youth lobby. So I was so embarrassed. The Y doesn't sleep. I came in after hours. I bring in my dog, and all of a sudden, I suffered the consequences of that. But it was really special place to work. Think about just the good times. Let's put to the side the young people and the families. Just the interaction with the front desk and the front desk staff, from Cedric and Renan to Alice to it was so much fun and fellowship in dealing with everyone associated with the Y, and that spirit was very contagious. Or a Pat Bent. I don't know if you Pat Bent, just like Mike Duvall, that was my very first supervisor. I was scared to death of Pat Bent. I talk about being on time. Some really wonderful people, and it was a fabulous experience for me to grow up through the Y. And when you grow up through the Y, it's kind of like being in the mafia. There's only one way out. I still feel connected, and I'm proud to be affiliated. What I love about the building is that, having grown up through the Y, having worked at the Y for many years, there's always a sense of discovery. There was an elevator, the old-fashioned elevator that you slide, that we would ride in as kids. There's always a part of the building that it was new to discover. Even though I had so many experiences at the Y, there was always something new to discover at the building. There are always so many rumors about what's on this level or what used to be here, from the very sad stories about the plantation room to stories about a cigar club and in the attic. There was always something new and different